Hello, everyone. Welcome once again. Today's topic is sentiment analysis using Azure Cognitive Services. And we have one of our favorite speakers with us, Anupama Natarajan. We'll take a quick few minutes and introduce Data Platform Virtual Summit 2021 to all of you. I guess you already know about this international virtual event. By now, this is one of the largest data analytics and AI learning events focused on Azure data analytics and AI. Your favorite subjects like SQL Server, Power BI, artificial intelligence stack, Azure Data Factory, Azure SQL, managed instance, everything under Azure Data Hood is covered in this conference. The conference, of course, is born in India and used to happen in Bangalore each year starting from 2015. But since last year, due to pandemic, we took it virtual, and it has been an excellent journey so far last year and this year, where the conference has been attended by people, by the community from more than 58 countries. So it's a huge win for the community, for all of us. One of the key features of the event is we bring 8 hours of virtual classroom training for you. These are, of course, combined and collectively called as pre-cons and post-cons. This year, we have 15 such training classes for you, divided into 4 hours each day, so a total of 8 hours. And the best part is if you book a training class for yourself, you get free access, complimentary access to the summit. You of course get all the recordings, 12-month streaming access, and there is a special discount code for there, so take a note of it. You can save $20 with that. That is save 20. Now we have, as I said, 15 training classes. So if you look at all the variety of topics out there, from machine learning to AI to data deployment to execution plans, SQL Server performance tuning, PowerShell, data pipeline, DAX, big data clusters, SQL developer stuff. So many different topics, but there is one special topic that I wanted to focus on today because Anupama is here with us, and that is application modernization using artificial intelligence. So, of course, Anupama is a Microsoft data platform MVP focusing on AI, and she's world renowned. She has been focusing on AI for so long, and I think this is probably the third year she is delivering this class on AI with us, and each year it has been heavily attended. So we're so glad that she is back. I will be not the right person to talk about the content that she's going to cover in AI. Probably she's going to do it after today's webinar. But take a note of her class on this topic: application modernization using artificial intelligence. Folks, take a note that when you attend these training classes at DPS, you have live attendance and you also get the class recordings, 12-month streaming access. So you can go back, watch all over again and again. At DPS, content has been our focus. We have believed in this theory: content is king. And what I want to communicate to you is that we spend quite a bit of time reaching out to Microsoft, reaching out to community experts and industry veterans to bring in fresh, up-to-date content, up-to-date stuff on the latest stack of Azure data and AI. And if you go to dataplatformvirtualsummit.com, more than 100 sessions have already been announced. So log on, take a look at sessions, browse and see which sessions you are interested in to attend. Well, not taking too much time, that's pretty much it. Go and talk to your managers and get sponsored today. Of course, most folks who come to DPS are sponsored by their companies. So that's a quick tip for you there. We are all over there on the internet. So you have Twitter channels, the Data Geeks and SQL Server Geeks. We are also on LinkedIn. We have YouTube channels that you may wish to subscribe to. So yeah, wherever you feel comfortable, whichever channel you are on, please connect with us. Well, with this, we are here and we hand over the stage to our rock star for today, Anupama Natarajan. Anupama, over to you. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks, Amit, for a great introduction. And yeah, let us get started. Let me quickly share my screen. Cool. Hopefully, everyone can see my screen. And with
Perfect.
that note, yeah, let us get started. And thanks, Amit, for a great introduction. And welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is around sentiment analysis using Azure Cognitive Services. And I'll just do a bit of introduction about the Data Platform Summit, as well as my training class, which I'm planning to take as part of the summit. And also my experience about the summit. I won't take too much time, but I'll just briefly talk about that before we get into today's session. Uh, and of course, I'm Anupama Natarajan, your speaker for today's session, and I'm a data and AI consultant. I run my own company, Pearl Innovations Limited, and I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand. And if you need to reach out to me post this particular webinar, and if you want to discuss about the training class or what you can really get out of the training class, feel free to reach out to me directly, no issues at all. So you can reach out to any of my social media channels, or just send me an email or reach out to me through my blog, doesn't matter. And I have 20 plus years of experience working in the IT industry. I'm a Microsoft MVP for AI as well as a certified trainer, and I do speak in a lot of conferences related to data and AI, and because that's more my passionate subjects really. And yeah, of course, let us quickly jump onto Data Platform Virtual Summit 2021. So my personal recommendation is like attending events like this is really important for anyone for their career. So in my 20 years of experience working in the IT industry, last I would say like 8 years or something, I've been speaking at conferences and stuff. But across the 20 years, every year I make a point like to attend any of these conferences as a part of enhancing my career. So two things: whether my company sponsors for me to attend or not doesn't matter, but I always have this as my personal learning agenda, to in order to enhance my career, because technology changes at rapid pace, right? So you have to keep up to date with that, and sometimes there are too many things to keep up to date. So attending these type of events will help you to catch up on latest and greatest technologies straight from the experts, like the community people, or the speakers who are experts in these areas, or even from Microsoft directly. And the good thing about Data Platform Virtual Summit this year is there is a lot of speakers from Microsoft who are also doing training classes, as well as members from the community like us who are doing the classes. The good thing about these training classes is, as Amit mentioned, like you get a free virtual summit ticket, which is really handy because there is hundreds of sessions that you can attend and you can get wealth of information from. So just paying for a virtual summit pre-con or a post-con class is going to give a wealth of benefits for you. And again, the classes are chunked nicely. So you're not going to attend a 8-hour virtual class in one day. Instead, it is split into 2 days of 4 hours each, which will be really valuable. Don't think that I'm doing too much of marketing about Data Platform Summit here. It's really a valuable conference, and that's why I'm trying to highlight to you how important it is for you to attend. In particular about my training class, and I think this webinar is going to be just an introduction about what you can get out of my training class. So my training class is all about application modernization using AI, because a lot of organizations think like AI is something, a buzzword in the market, new to the market. So we can't we have to start with a greenfield project and stuff. So this is not about starting a greenfield project. You can take an existing application in your organization and enhance with artificial intelligence. So that's what the focus of our class training class is going to be. And also it is going to be more real world driven exercise. So we are going to talk about taking some business applications as examples, and how do you use artificial intelligence in that in order to enhance those applications. So if you quickly look at the key items that we'll be covering, or the agenda that we'll be covering as part of the training class, you will get an introduction about AI. So because the target audience for this training class not only focusing on intermediate and advanced, but also beginners. So we will start with an introduction to AI. What are the Azure services that you have got to do application modernization using AI? Followed by that, we are going to take 4 business application examples, and how can we use AI to modernize that. And some of these applications which we are going to discuss as part of the training class, these applications exist in the current world. So for instance, like organizations have contact centers. Organizations have websites, like like they have got websites, they have got Twitter channels, they have got Facebook pages, and so on. So the social media is something every organization these days have. Similarly, like data capturing and visualization. So every organization capture data in one form or the other, and they would like to visualize that. And also like customer service, which organization you can think about not doing any customer service? So everyone does that, but how do you use AI to enhance that customer service or take the customer service to the next level? And see, if you look at all these topics that we are going to cover in the training class, it's all going to be focused on real world scenarios which you can take back and apply in your organization. So you can take an existing social media channel of your organization and enhance it. You can take an existing you can transform the customer service from in your organization, what you do today, to the next generation or the future way of looking into things. So don't miss the booking the training class, and I'll be covering a lot of things as part of the training class. And getting into today's webinar, so if you look at one of the topic is around sentiment analysis, which you can see how do you do that with social media channels. We'll be looking at a glimpse of that. So what service in Azure provides that capability of doing sentiment analysis? What does sentiment analysis mean as an introduction in this webinar? But we'll be deep diving more into the analysis on social media channels as part of our training class. So with that note, an introduction, let us get into the agenda for today's session. So what we will be starting with is what natural language processing is, or NLP is, and where does this fit in with the sentiment analysis. Then we'll be looking at some use cases of natural language processing. Why do we need that, and what are the different things, the problems that you can solve with the natural language processing? What Azure services that we have got available for natural language processing? And we'll be talking about text analytics specifically in this webinar, and also about sentiment analysis and how can you do that with the text analytics. And last but not the least, we will be touching upon translation services and language understanding, which is LUIS, and also some references that you can take back and learn more about this topic. And of course, don't forget to attend my training class, because you will get in-depth practical scenarios that you can cover using this topic in my training class. So what is natural language processing? So if I want to just give you an industry world definition, it is a field of AI which allows computer to break down and understand human language. But if I want to translate it into a common way of how do I say this, or make it in plain English and simple terms rather than technical terms, I'll start always with an example, because this is my personal experience when I started with AI. So when AI was a buzzword, this is years and years ago, and me and my friend, we were thinking about like, okay, let us do something in AI, like a pet project or something. So what do we start with? Because we Microsoft introduced about cognitive services, and let us get started with something. So we decided to work on a pet project, like let us create a bot. And so the question was like, what is the bot we are going to create? So I thought like, okay, I love coffee, so let us create a coffee bot. So how do I order a coffee? And then let us create the sequence of the coffee bot. So me and my friend, we started working together, and we started working on a coffee bot. So we recreated some flows around, okay, how does the ordering has to work out? So normally when I go and order a coffee, I just ask for like, okay, give me a flat white with two sugars, or maybe a regular flat white with two sugars. And this is the only statement I say, and then I get my coffee straight away. So but when we've had to translate this into a bot, so the first screen is like, okay, so what do you like to order? So it's a coffee, great. So do you want to have a regular or a large? So do you want to have, what type of coffee you need to have? Is it a flat white or a mocha or a hot chocolate? And then followed by that, like the some other series of questions like, oh, do you need that with sugar or without sugar? So if it is with sugar, how much of sugar? Is it one sugar or two sugars? So we created this flow, and my friend said like, okay, Anupama, like use it as an end user. If you are going to order the coffee, like use this bot. So I asked, the bot asked me a series of questions. Well and good. First time I answered all the questions. And then the second time I've been asked the same question and I got irritated. So how many times I'll be answering the same thing? So if I go to a cafe, the first day I order, but if I'm a regular customer to the cafe, right? So pretty much they know what I'm going to order and my order doesn't change. I order the same thing almost every day. So this is where it comes to. So I was having a conversation with my friend and said, like, if we release this bot or even we give it to someone, I think people will get irritated because you're asking the same thing again. For ordering a coffee, literally, like, I have to answer like a 7 or 8 pieces of information. But when I go to a cafe, I say one sentence, which is, I need a regular flat white with 2 sugars. That's it. So why can't we make that easy? And that's where natural language processing come into play. So you can say something in plain English as how a human can say that, and then the ability for the system to understand that and also like address and understand what you are trying to ask and then meet your needs. And that's what pretty much natural language processing helps you to do. So if I order or provide a statement like I need a flat white with 2 sugars, the system that we are building should be intelligent enough to understand I'm ordering a coffee here, the size is regular, and the coffee type is flat white. And 2 sugars basically mean like I need a coffee with 2 sugars. So, this is in a simple way how I can explain to you what natural language processing is: the ability for your system to understand human language and appropriately interpret that and provide the necessary output. So, what are the different use cases of NLP? So, where you can use NLP. So, one of the thing we are going to look at is around sentiment analysis. We'll be also looking when we look at the demo, we'll be looking at some of the other things like language detection, key phrase detection, topic detection, and so on. But sentiment analysis is one of the important aspect because this is a way how you can understand how your end users are feeling about whatever you have released. It can be a product, it can be a customer service that you have provided, or it can be like any feedback or any new scenarios that you have launched for your customers. So sentiment analysis is what the customers feel about the things that you have done for them. And how do you go about doing that? And what are the different scenarios where you can use it? So let us quickly look at some of the use cases where this can be used. And in my training class, we'll be delving into one of this particular in detail and with a real world example itself. So one of the thing where you can do or use NLP is around or sentiment analysis is around analyzing survey results. Every organization, you collect a lot of surveys or take up a lot of surveys for your end users. They fill in the details and you may collect that information, but then you have to analyze, right? And that's where sentiment analysis comes into play. So you launched a product and you want to understand like whether what people like about the product, what they don't like about the product, and how can you use sentiment analysis or using text analytics in order to do that. So this is launching a survey tool, collecting the results, and using the text analytics. How can you do sentiment analysis and key phrase extractions? And I'll talk to you in deep around what the key phrase extraction really mean, and how do you store that information, and then how can you surface that information either in a Power BI or in a application portal. Another example is analyzing customer calls. So we talk about like every contact center, we have people coming and asking about like, okay, so there is a lot of conversation happens between the customer and your contact center operator. So how can you understand whether there were good outcomes as part of the call or was it a negative feedback, and how do you take positive feedback and make sure you maintain it as a organization? And similarly, how do you take a negative feedback and improve it, so improve the customer experience by taking up that feedback? And you can definitely use Azure Cognitive Services text analytics in order to do sentiment analysis. And this is another scenario where you can use sentiment analysis to understand your customer behavior. Incident management. And any organization you take about, like they do have an incident management system. So customer is not a customer who is external to the organization. Sometimes customers are internal to an organization too. So how many times you would have gone to your IT help desk or someone and asked for access to something, or not having permissions to do your job, and then waiting for days and days to get that resolved. And how do you go about getting the feedback around, okay, how does our IT services are provided to our internal customers. So this is again, you can use a sentiment analysis to scan through your incident management systems, extract the information and analyze like what is the feedback that your internal customers are giving to you. So long story short, the analysis that you are doing, like the sentiment analysis, it not always talking about external customers. Sometimes it is really valuable to do that within the internal customers within your organization. Monitoring social media feeds, I think we talked about this. Every organization has got one way or the other, they have got social media channels, and which is becoming more and more popular, and which is becoming more and more busy too. So no one has got the time to go and read through every single tweet or every single Facebook post which people are putting. But you need a mechanism to scan through this and automate this process. So the new data can keep on coming through, and you can use sentiment analysis using the cognitive services tools, and you want to just act upon them. So one of the thing we'll be looking in my training class is about how do you automatically extract the information from different social media channels and put that into the cognitive services engine to do automated sentiment analysis. So don't forget to book your training, because I think that is a really valuable thing which you can add it to your organization. So sentiment analysis can also be used for this type of scenario. And classification of sensitive documents, you may be thinking about why should I use sentiment the text analytics or sentiment analysis for this. So here you can use the text analytics engine within cognitive services. So you can really figure out what are the sensitive entities or things that has been used in this document, and automatically you can classify whether these are sensitive documents or non-sensitive documents. So really valuable for a lot of organizations, because when you have electronic documents, sometimes if people don't classify them, you can use this mechanism to do automatic classification. So I have just showcased numerous scenarios, right, where you can use text analytics and sentiment analysis in order to enhance your services within your organization. One of the recent addition which Microsoft have added with the text analytics is the opinion mining. So understanding sentiment is good, which is all about okay, is it a positive outcome, whether the end user is feeling positive about certain things or negative about certain things, or have they given a neutral feedback. It's neither good nor bad, so that's what we call it as a neutral, right? And but in our addition to that, it's all about forming an opinion. So that is another field or another emphasis which I think cognitive services is adding to the text analytics engine. So you can do sentiment analysis. Along with that, we can also perform opinion mining, which means what does the user actually trying to convey that. So you can just say oh, they are positive feedback or negative feedback. But if you drill down to the feedback, sometimes you can say there are some positive aspects about this, but there are some negative aspects about this, and then you can come back to an opinion saying what is the overall outcome here. So we have been talking about sentiment analysis a bit, right? So what does that mean and so on. But what Azure services that provides you that capability when we talk about natural language processing? So the hierarchy I will be using here is because I've been using these terms like NLP, text analytics, sentiment analysis interchangeably. So let me explain you how does that hierarchy fit in here. NLP is natural language processing. So this is what I talk about, is how do you interpret a human language so that the machines can understand that. So that's what we call it as NLP. In order to facilitate NLP, you have got certain cognitive services, and one of that is text analytics. And text analytics service provides sentiment analysis as one of the service. So you have the text analytics service, which provides a capability called sentiment analysis. Great. So natural language processing is not only achieved using text analytics, even though we are going to emphasize and look at the service provided by text analytics, which is sentiment analysis in this session, but also other services within the cognitive services stack provides the natural language processing, like your speech service. In a typical contact center, speech service is really valuable because sometimes you can speak in a different language other than English, and speech service will allow you to recognize the speech, and then you can also use a translation service to translate that language into English, and then you can perform sentiment analysis over that. So this is where the different services within Azure cognitive services can help you in order to perform natural language processing. So the key thing we are going to look here is around text analytics. What it allows you to do is if the text analytics engine supports you to identify whether you can do language detection, you can do sentiment analysis, identify key phrases out of the text, and also the entity recognition. So these are some of the key aspects that you can do with text analytics, which I will be showcasing to you shortly with a demo. So before we jump on to the different aspects, I think if we look at a demo and then come back to our slides, that will make a bit more sense. Let me quickly jump on to my demo here. Nice to have a good font size, and I'm going to drag and drop. Okay, so what I have got here is a simple console application. So I don't have a much more complicated or anything, a simple console application. So I will be going and commenting a few things in here so that when we get started, we don't need to worry about a lot of things happening. So, and I'll just get them going along and enable them as we go along in the example. Okay, so what are we going to start with? So we'll start with text analytics. As I said, text analytics is part of your cognitive services stack. So before we get into that, I will also throw and show you the Azure portal, what I have provisioned. Let me get into my Azure portal here. Cool. So I have got a cognitive services service created here. So within cognitive services, like you have got n number of APIs. So if you haven't exposed to cognitive services, there is a series of APIs that are available that will allow you to integrate with your applications. And these are pre-built models. So machine learning models that are pre-built. So you are not training any models here. So Microsoft have already built these models, trained these models, and made it available for you to straight away integrate with your applications. So these are some of the services, cognitive services that are available, like computer vision for analyzing images, content moderator, face recognition, forms recognizer, language understanding, text analytics. So one of the key thing around we are going to look at is text analytics. You can provision each of these cognitive services independently. So I can go and provision a text analytics cognitive services from the Azure Marketplace, or what I can create is like a multi-service account. So I can go and search for just cognitive services. So if I quickly jump on here, and if I want to provision cognitive services, what I can do is I can say create a resource. In the marketplace, I can go and say cognitive services. So there you go. So I can go ahead and create this, which means like I can access a lot of other cognitive services through here. So this is what we call it as a multi-service account. So you can individually provision a text analytics service, or you can provision a cognitive services multi-service account, which allows you to use any of these services that you want to use in your applications. So rather than building several services, you can have one service and target it, one resource targeting towards multiple services. As usual, once you provision it, the key thing that you need to note is your keys and your endpoint. So these are the two configuration attributes that you require once you provision any cognitive services. In this case, it's the text analytics service. So you may be wondering where I'm actually using this particular one. So if you look at my app settings.json, I have used my endpoint and the key, which I took from my provisioning service and used in my application. So what is this simple application trying to do? Um, this is just a simple introduction to sentiment analysis. As I told you, like in my training class, we will be doing more automation related stuff where we will be pulling reviews out of the social media channels and put that into the analytics engine. But here I have got a few reviews in a text file already. So assume these are reviews that was provided about a hotel where people have stayed and the customers have stayed, and they have provided some reviews here. So the reviews can be in any language. So there is no specification in terms of it has to be in English. So what we are going to do is take these reviews, analyze, and figure out like what we can get out of these reviews using the text analytics service. Let me quickly run this sample. So what we are now looking at is the output of the sample is just reading the content of the review file. So I'm going to just quickly check what is the content of this file. So here, if I look at here, the review one, it has the txt has got some content about the hotel and the feedback about the hotel stay. So as you can see here, I have got a few 5 different reviews here. So the next step, what we are going to do post this is to enable the language. So I want to identify whether the reviews are all in English. So if it is not in English, then I need to decide on what do I need to do before I go ahead and um, understand the sentiment about that feedback. So what I have turned on is to enable the language detection. So now this is going to go and send this text to the text analytics cognitive service, and it is going to detect what is the language associated with this text. So that's what we have passed, and here you can see the review languages have printed here and they are in English, and the final one, it's in French. So here quite quickly I understood like, okay, so there is not only English available in here, but also I have got some reviews in French. The next thing I'm going to enable is, so if you want to just understand a piece of code, how does this actually work here? So I really had the endpoint and the key read from my config file, and then I established a connection to the text analytics client with that endpoint and the credentials. And now pretty much I'm starting to use the functions that are available through my text analytics client. The detect language will allow me to detect the language associated with the text. So I'm passing the review text and I'm getting the language associated with it. The next thing I'm going to do is analyze the sentiment. So I can call the analyze sentiment function here to figure out what is the sentiment of that review looks like. So this is now going to take each and every review, and this is going to tell me whether the sentiment is positive, negative, or is it neutral. So here you can see the review says clean rooms, good service, great location near Buckingham Palace, and so on. So everything is all about this review is all positive. So that's why I got a sentiment as positive. Here, this is an old hotel and the furnishings are average, and it is becoming really old now and required changing. So here I can immediately see the sentiment is not that great, and it is like it shows a negative sentiment for me. And similarly, there is a mixed sentiment. So here, where things can be like it can't detect between like a positive or a negative. So for instance, in that scenario, like the text analytics engine is going to tell you like, okay, so I can't identify it because it has a combination of positive and negative sentiments. So this is going to be a mixed sentiment. That's what the person had, because here they talked about a lot of good things about the rooms are clean, and the only downside, which is the negative part, is the noise. so that they wanted to have a room furthest from the traffic noise. So as you can see here, like a good and bad, and that's why it is a mixed sentiment. So the good thing about here is around whether it's positive or negative, and then automatically it can detect the sentiment accordingly. And think about how it is going to be valuable if you can automate this end to end, like where you get the information, automate it, and then you can immediately positive feedback, you can give kudos to the respective departments. Negative feedback, you can immediately send it to the appropriate department and say action it, get it resolved. So that's pretty much sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is trying to understand the feelings of your customers based on the feedback that they have provided. Sometimes one of the key thing that is really valuable when you do sentiment analysis is identifying some of the key phrases that people have used in their feedback. I'll just walk you through what these phrases really mean and how it can be valuable also. So here I'm putting a few things around the. So as you can see here, same text. Now we are identifying what are the key phrases that has been used in this particular review. So you can see some of the key phrases that are coming is like a good hotel. So it is part of hotel is the Royal Hotel, and it has a combination of courtyard, restaurant, Indian, of course, and great location, part of in London. So if you're looking for some keywords, like okay, I'm looking for like where anyone has mentioned anything about Indian in the comments. So I want to extract all the comments related to that. So I want to form an opinion on, okay, so why they have mentioned about Indian, whether they liked about the Indian food, or whether they were a lot of Indians visiting the restaurant, like the hotel or something. So if I want to emphasize on a particular keyword, the key phrases extraction will be really valuable. So what I can do is like once I get the reviews, analyze the reviews, identify the key phrases, then I can start looking at, okay, pull all the reviews related to where the key phrase is Indian, and then I can start doing mining or text mining around that, saying like, okay, what is the rationale behind the usage of the phrase Indian in the reviews. So this will be really valuable, especially if you want to understand more about the reviews and on a specific keyword. So thinking about this is like where this is valuable is, it's easy if I have 5 reviews in this case to go and look for the things. But if I have 200 or 300 reviews on a daily basis, then it's really hard for me to do this manually. So that's where key phrase analysis is really important and valuable with the text analytics engine. And with that one, there is another thing which I will also emphasize is getting key entities. So key phrases is one, key entities is another one. So what are the key entities that we can get out of the reviews itself? So as you can see here, we started with the language, then we moved on with the sentiment, then we moved on with what are the key phrases. Then we started to look at like, okay, more than key phrases, like what are the entities that we are talking about. So entities, as you know, whether it can be a person type or a person or a location or a product. So it also emphasizes, okay, I can see these entities in the review, and some of these entities relates to location, or some of these entities related to the person type, and there is an indication about date and time. So sometimes date and time is really valuable, especially if you are talking about historic events and moments, right? So when people mention something about that, it's really good to pull through saying, is there any dates mentioned in the reviews which correlates to some historic thing? So there are people who give reviews saying like, okay, I stayed it during the September 2011 sorry, September 2001 incident on this at Twin Tower or something. So that may be someone would have mentioned about it. That may be a valuable thing to pull through those reviews for analysis purposes. So that's where entities are key. So it looks through each and every review text that you have provided, and it identifies the entities associated with that. And then you can use it for a few other like processes. one of the thing you'll be looking in my training class is like the chaining process, right? So we are not going to use one cognitive services for one thing. So sometimes you have the ability to achieve a business outcome, you have to stitch through multiple cognitive services through to get an end-to-end solution. A classic example if I want to give in this scenario is like the language. So the language can be any other language, right? So I can use a translation service to translate French to English. Then I will pass that output, which is like the English output, into my text analytics service, and then I can do analysis out of that. Or if I want to take an example like a contact center, right? So I can use speech. So I can take the speech, translate it to like take it into text. Then if I want to do translation services and then text analytics services, I can chain these services like this in order to come up with a solution for my problem, which is what we'll be looking in depth around our training class, where how do we chain some of these cognitive services to provide a real world end-to-end solution. So coming back to the entities, we found what are the entities in here. One more additional thing that the text analytics services provide you is getting the linked entities. So what does a linked entity really mean? So you'll be, once I show the example here, it will be clearly evident what it really means. Cool. So I have some entities, right? If I have relevant information about those entities in Wikipedia, the linked entities actually gives me those links. How valuable this is, like because you can now enrich your customer reviews into more things. So you can add hyperlinks to that, and if someone is reading through the review, or if you have positive reviews that you want to share, and if you have locations or landmarks where you have got relevant information that you can redirect your end users with, now you can do that with linked entities. So if you talk about the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and then you can just link them to the appropriate Wikipedia article. So that gives them that information more about the Golden Bridge. So that's what the linked entities really do. So as you can see here, a simple review message, how we have translated that review message using the text analytics service to extract language, extract sentiment, extract your key phrases, your entities, as well as any relevant URLs that you want to redirect them with. So this is just a simple example. Took some reviews and do that. Think about the power that you will be getting if you hook it up with a lot of social media channels and or do the text extraction automatically and stitch them through these services and get the output. And we will do that end to end in our training class. So don't miss subscribing for the training class, because how do you turn simple examples like this into more real world practical examples is what you will get to see in the training class. So let me get back to my slides here. So we looked at language detection in our sample. So where we looked at some of the reviews, and then automatically we detected like what language it is. So whether it's English or it's French or something. So we were able to find that out. So language detection service, text analytics service provides the ability to do language detection. Sentiment analysis, as I said, like your sentiments can be like a positive, negative, or even mixed. So you take any feedback and you can feed it through text analytics service, and you say like, okay, detect the sentiment, and it can automatically detect the sentiment for you. So here we had the phrase saying we had dinner at this restaurant last night. The first thing I noticed was how courteous the staff was. We were greeted in a friendly manner and taken to a table right away. The table was clean, the chairs were comfortable, and the food was amazing. So really positive, right? And that's what you get out of it. So you don't need to read through each and every review like that. You feed in through the text and you get the sentiment out of that. And the other sentiment here is our dining experience at this restaurant was one of the worst I ever had. The service was slow, the food was awful. I will never eat at this establishment again. How negative it is, right? So this is the type of feedback your organization needs to get through and find out like how do we turn this negative sentiment into positive experience for your end users. Key phrase extraction, as we saw, you can take any of your feedback or reviews, and then you can identify what are the key phrases that you can get out of that. Like in this one, we had dinner here for a birthday celebration, had a fantastic experience. We were greeted by a friendly host. hostess and taken to our table right away. The ambience was relaxed, the food was amazing, service was terrific. If you like great food and attentive service, you should try this place. So really good, and you can extract a few things around the person went for a dinner, and it was a birthday celebration, and they had talk about great food, and the ambience of the place was really great. So these phrases will help you to do furthermore analysis around what is the topic that they are talking about in this review. Entity recognition. So here I ate at the restaurant in Seattle last week. The entity that you can easily pick it up from here is the Seattle, the place where they had their food. And so these type of things are really valuable in terms of doing recognition service. One more thing which I will quickly walk you through because we have some time is the translator service. So even though we emphasized sentiment analysis, which we saw is part of the text analytics service, translation service is also really valuable. So you can use a translation service in order to get the translation out of your things. Let me quickly check one thing before I run this example. Okay, let me get this one. So the translation service is similar. What it does is you can take feedback and then you can translate it into different languages like how you need it, and you can start pretty much start utilizing it. So I'm going to just update a setting in here. Cool. So this is the key cognitive services key that we'll be using in our services, and this is mainly used in order to communicate, because one of the reason why we use this URL and the key is the cognitive services need to know whom to charge, right? So when you are invoking all these endpoints, you need to know okay, these requests are coming from this, and this particular cognitive services resource need to be charged for that. So yes, of course, this is not free. You have got pricing associated with that, because there is a free tier per subscription, so you can try for free the text analytics service. But if you want to really use it in production scenarios, there are cost information associated with that. Again, come to the training class and I'll show you the deep dive around costing and how can you approach the usage of this in a more efficient fashion. Okay, simple thing here. We have again a few set of reviews, and these reviews, what we are going to do is we want to do translation. So if it is not in English, then probably we will convert them from the source language to English. Okay, so let us quickly run this. To do that, I will change my startup project. So what this is going to give us is to read through the reviews and pass it on to the translation service. And if it is a different language, if it is English, then we don't need to worry about anything. So let us start from the top. The review one, the language was detected as English, so it doesn't need to do any translation as such. Same thing with review two, the language has been detected as English, so I don't need to do any translation. Review three, the same. I have got a good review, but it is again in English. If I go back to review five, this is where it is in French. So it is in French, and which means I can't do anything that I want to extract or do conversions with that. So I want to turn that into English so that I can keep all the reviews in one language. And then the translation has come back really good. So what it really means is a pleasant hotel, the Hotel Buckingham, London, UK. Love this hotel. And the staff is very friendly and the rooms are comfortable. So that's what pretty much they have tried to convey that in French. So this is the translation service. So as you can see here, the cognitive services, especially the chaining process, which I mentioned, right? So you can hook up a cognitive service, one cognitive service, and the output of that can be fed into another cognitive service. Really valuable. And we'll be looking at a lot of examples in our training class more around this chaining process. Because at the end of the day, when you talk about industry specific or real world scenarios, we can't, sometimes single cognitive services may not suffer sufficient enough to solve the problem. So you may need to use a series of cognitive services where you take the output of one cognitive service and then you supply that as an input to another. So we'll be looking at or delving that into detail in our training class session. So we looked at a quick demo around how do you do sentiment analysis using text analytics. So the way how we jumped onto the demo was like we collected some reviews in some text files, and which we will be automating it at a later point in our training class of how do you pull that automatically from Twitter or Facebook, and how do you use the different connectors to do that. We got some reviews. We fed those reviews into the text analytics service, and then we invoked certain functions. So, for instance, for language detection, we invoked get the sentiment out of the text. Then we looked for key phrases. Then we looked for entities, and also we extracted around linked entities. So, what we did was like we were using the text analytics SDK. As you know, like you can invoke text analytics service in a variety of ways, and what we looked was one way, which is around provisioning cognitive services and using the SDK. You have a REST API for that. So let me quickly explain what I mean. So in the first example where we talked about text analytics, I was using the SDK. So I added the SDK as a NuGet package, the text analytics one, and then I started utilizing calling the appropriate functions in here by initializing the text analytics client. If you look at the translation service, what I used here I used a REST API. So this is just to give you the variation saying one I was using a SDK, the other one I was using a REST API. So two different mechanisms how you can integrate these services within your application. And there are other ways, like these are writing code, right? There are mechanisms where you can use these services without writing single line of code. So using tools like Power Automate, Power BI, so they come with AI services embedded in that, and one of that is sentiment analysis. And again, we will be talking about that also in our training class. So how you do that with code as well as without code. So if you are thinking about integrating in an existing .NET application or a C# or a Python application you have got in your organization, you can do that using REST API or using the SDK. But if you're in a green field where I said like, okay, I want to enhance it, but I don't have any applications at the moment, you don't need to write code. You can use the no-code platforms, the Power Platform products in order to integrate the cognitive services API in that. And don't miss the training class because we will be looking at some sample related to that at the training class also. Sorry, getting back to this, and I'll put this back in here. So we saw a good demo around the sentiment analysis and the text analytics service. So this is going to be my training class, which is around how do you enhance your applications using artificial intelligence or application modernization. And this will help you to climb further in your AI career. So if you're thinking about enhancing your applications and in real world scenarios, how can you use AI to enhance your application and improve customer service in your organization? Don't miss my training class at DPS 2021. And as Amit mentioned at the start of the session, so if you attend any of the training class, you get this summit for ticket for free, which is nice because the summit ticket is really valuable, more than 100 odd sessions that are available. I think it's still increasing. So use the opportunity. If you are interested in AI, attend my session, but there are also other training classes available, as Amit mentioned, covering different topics. So don't miss subscribing to that. And of course, they mentioned about a discount code in today's session. So make use of that discount code to get a $20 discount in when you're booking for the classes. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
sorry, I'll just wrap it up with a summary. And so pretty much we looked at text analytics and how do you do sentiment analysis and how do you enhance your business and customer service using text analytics. And I'm happy to take up any Q&A related to today's session.
Thank you so very much, Anupama. Wonderful session, very crisp, and thanks for the demos as well. So let's jump
Sure.
over to the questions. The first question is Srinivas, and his question is opinion mining dashboard showcased here is using streaming data set.
Yes, that's right. So the dashboard is like you can stream the reviews straight away from here directly into a Power BI dashboard. That's right. So the opinion mining, they have released it as part of like the cognitive, the text analytics service, which is 3.1 version. So the 3.0 didn't have that. So that's a new service that Microsoft have introduced as part of the 3.1, where you can get real-time data and stream it.
Perfect. Next question is from Santosh. Looks very subjective, but anyways, can you please explain NLP in details, how it works step by step?
You have to attend my training class for that. Of course, yeah. So we didn't have much time in order to go that in detail. I think I can correlate to a simple example. It's all about understanding the text, right? So and then breaking that text into chunks. So when I said an example where I wanted to order a coffee, right? So that's how we learned about like a NLP. So I had to go through, ask for a series of questions, and I need to assign, okay, what type of coffee it is, what is the size you are trying to order, and so on. So that's what NLP really does. It takes a sentence and then it is identifying, okay, is there any objects that are related to that? And we are when we used NLP, right, we were focusing more on the phrases that we are interested in, because we know what are the key phrases, like when people are ordering the coffee they will be using, right? So we were training pretty much those phrases and we are identifying. But if you look at text analytics service which Microsoft have built, they have trained that service with n number of key phrases and stuff, and that's what is involved in their machine learning models behind the scenes, how they built up this service. So step by step, if you want more information, come for the training class and I can provide you more information on that, or reach out to me separately.
Perfect. I think Santosh had a repetitive question out there about working algorithm of NLP. I guess your answer is same, Anupama, right?
That's right.
Okay, we have another question from Srinivas. Is opinion mining integrated into Power BI and the form of visual like Q&A visual used for NLP?
That's right. So the one which I showed you in my one of the screenshot that I used in my slides, which I think I'll be sharing also, is actually getting the data in real time and pushing it as a streaming data and pushing it into Power BI. So that's what opinion mining can do. Like as and when the information is coming through, we can feed it directly through to the Power BI dashboard.
Perfect. Right, Anupama, with this we finish off all the questions. So great, bang on
No
time.
problem. Thanks, Amit. And I think it was a great thing around. Thanks for organizing DPS. And as I want to tell to everyone, like this is not my first year with DPS. I've been in long association with DPS, and I know the amount of work they put in the organizing these conferences and the value that creates within the community. So I would recommend definitely everyone to just register for the training classes as well as the summit itself, because really valuable. As I said, everyone has to upskill yourself and use this type of training and conferences as an opportunity in order to upskill yourself as well as like your organization. And yeah, there is a variety of topics in there, so it's not only specific to AI. If you are interested in SQL Server, any data platform related products, PowerShell, as Amit mentioned, there is a wide range of topics that you can pick it up from. And I'll be more curious to attend a few things because I'm not an expert in everything, right? So for me, I'm still learning on areas where I have to improve on, and I can share the knowledge where I have the expertise on. So learning is a journey, so it never stops and it always continues. So make use of Data Platform Summit for that.
With this, thank you very much. Wherever you are, whichever part of the world, please have rest of the day good one and keep safe and continue to connect with us. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, moderators. Thanks, Anupama. Thanks, folks.
Thanks,
Goodbye
everyone.
and have a
Thanks,
good day.
Amit.
Bye.
See you, everyone.